Okay, again, welcome. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you. We are really pleased to have you here today. So I said SELCS, but in fact, it's bigger than SELCS because you will see sometimes SELCS-CMII. There's also the Center for Multidisciplinary and Intercultural Inquiry, which is for postgraduate students. But I would say that the idea of being multidisciplinary and intercultural is built in this big department of which SELCS, which is devoted to undergraduate studies, is made. Okay, so this is the place to study languages, modern languages, but not only modern languages, as you will see. So these are on your screen. You can see the languages that are taught directly in SELCS in our department, and these are Dutch, French, German, Italian through their programs, and also Danish, Norwegian, Old Norse, and Swedish through the Scandinavian studies, and Portuguese and Spanish through Spanish, Portuguese, and Latin American studies. As you can see, there are here widely spoken languages and less widely spoken languages. I will come back on this later. Now, as you can see here, we cover in SELCS Northern, Central, and Southern Europe, but actually we extend beyond Europe because if you study, say, French and Spanish, these languages are spoken also in Northern Africa, South America, and North America. So, and we're well aware of that, and in our cultural options, we cover those areas as well. The level at which you start studying the language varies. For example, for French and Spanish, it's you study at post-A level, whereas for German and Italian, you can either start at post-A level or what we call ab initio, which means basically from scratch. So you can also study these languages if you haven't studied them before. For Dutch, Swedish, and Portuguese, it's ab initio because we assume that you haven't studied them before. And for other languages, it can be either ab initio or post-A level. Why am I saying other languages? Because in fact, through SELCS, you can study more than the languages that I have mentioned before. Because thanks to partnerships that we have and collaborations with other institutions and departments within UCL, we're able to offer you the study of these additional languages. I won't read them all, but you can see that through those that you can study through the School of Slavonic and Eastern European Studies, or those that you would study through the Center for Languages and International Education, which are Arabic, Japanese, and Mandarin. You can also study ancient languages, Greek and Latin, or Hebrew. Now, how does this actually work? There are different types of degree, and so let me start explaining how they work. So single honors means that you focus on one language only, and you devote the language and the culture associated with it, and you devote 100% of your time to it. So, for example, BA Dutch, BA French, BA German, etc. And these single honors are in the languages that we offer in SELCS. Then there are the joint honors. On your screen, you can see some examples, BA French and Spanish, BA German and Dutch, etc. I'm saying some examples because you can imagine that by combining all the languages that I mentioned before, those taught in SELCS and those taught through SELCS, there are many, many combinations. And the idea with joint honors is that you devote 50% of your time to one language and 50% to the other language of your choice. And again, you study the language and the culture associated with it. Clearly, with 50 versus 100, it means that you have to cover 2. We still believe that you can get to full fluency, and you can still get a deep understanding of the culture. We don't stretch it to 3 languages because that would be too much in our view. I mean, learning a new language and the culture takes time and requires some effort. So 2 is enough. Or you can combine the study of one language with another discipline. And again, here I listed only some examples, but there are more combinations available. So if you have any questions on the kinds of combination that we offer, feel free to ask us in the chat now or later in the Q&A part of this session. But you see some examples: French and French with film studies, Spanish with management, German and philosophy, etc. Then there are these types of degrees, which are called BA Language and Culture and BA Comparative Literature. So, and these are, these in a sense explain well the philosophy that is behind all of our degrees, which is, as I said, being multidisciplinary and intercultural. BA Language and Culture combines languages and cultural studies from across UCL. This works a bit different than the previous ones because you study 2 languages, but one 75% of your time, and the other one, the minor language, 25% of your time. So your major language determines the cultural options that you can take, and also the destination of the year abroad. And I will speak in a moment about the year abroad. But you also have some options here that are not available in the previous degrees, in the sense that the diet is pretty strict because you have to take language modules and also a certain number of mandatory modules, cultural options, if you want to learn that culture. And then you have a portion of options that you can choose from. Here you have a slight more choices. So you discuss this with the program director, and for example, if there is a discipline that you really want to study, you can combine that, and you have a bit more freedom here. Also, an interesting thing of the BA Language and Culture is that you can change language. So, for example, if you realize at the end of year 1 that you're not so interested in what was your major language, but you want to focus on what has been until then your minor language, you can do so. So you can change things a little bit more in the course of your study. And then there's BA Comparative Literature, which is very much based on comparison. And you don't just compare literatures and say, you don't just compare, I don't know, Shakespeare with Goethe, but you also look at what happens when a certain culture or a certain topic or a certain author is transferred into another culture or seen through different eyes. And not just literary authors, it could be a film director, it could be an issue that you want to consider, a concept, an idea, and you consider what happens, as I said, when this is looked at in different ways. As I said, we do this all the time in all of our degrees, but in a sense, this idea of comparing is very much emphasized in this degree, which is offered without or with year abroad, whereas the other degrees, they all involve the year abroad. One last thing about our courses are what we call ELCS courses. ELCS is just the code, because if you take Italian, you will take courses that are coded ETL. If you take French, you take courses that are coded FREN, and those focus on the language of your choice. But then you also take, all students take what we call these ELCS courses, and this is where you have perhaps more choice. And the principle of our ELCS courses is that so we teachers choose a topic, and we look at it from a broad point of view, and from different angles. So not just from an Italian perspective, a French perspective, a Dutch perspective, or a Spanish perspective, but we looked at it in a broader spectrum. Let me give you some examples of the ELCS courses. Some, because we offer many. Some ELCS courses we offer this year: Nationalism and Ethnicity in Contemporary Europe, Utopias and Dystopias in 20th Century Literature, European Theater in Translation, Superheroes, Cultures of Conflict. So here we have a number of professors that come from different programs, so say from Dutch, from Spanish, etc., and they address these issues from their perspective, but also open to different perspectives, and they combine their expertise to, you know, in their inquiry. And the interesting thing is that in these courses, so while in the ETL courses, FREN courses, SPAN courses, you will be with other students taking Spanish, French, Italian, etc. In ELCS courses, so the language, so in the other courses, you will be with students taking the language that you are taking, so the same students. In the ELCS courses, you will be with students taking other courses, other languages that you're not taking. And this makes the conversation very interesting, because both professors and students come from different areas and look at things with different eyes, and this makes the seminars and the discussions very interesting. So you study certain topics. How are you assessed? We have what we call a summative assessment, which are the coursework that is actually assessed and for which you receive a mark, and the mark contributes towards your final mark and your degree. But throughout the module, you also have the opportunity to submit formative assessment. This is not mandatory. It is not, you don't receive a mark, but you do receive feedback. And this is very useful because it prepares you for exams and essays that will be marked. So you have plenty of opportunity to practice and to learn. So don't, you know, we know nobody comes and you know, just by magic is able to write an academic essay, but that you will be guided throughout the process in many ways, and formative assessment is part of that. The main form through which we assess your study are essays, 1 or 2 per course, and exams. And sometimes they're combined, sometimes for a module. So for a module, for example, you might write 1 essay only, 2 essays, or you write 1 essay and then do an exam. So there are many different combinations. It depends on on the module. For language courses, of course, there's also there are oral exams. And also there are modules in which you will be asked to present group work or portfolios or say write a blog. It depends on the tutor. And these different things like essays, exams, group work, portfolios, etc., count, in different percentages. And again, it depends on the module and the tutor. You have, yes, also I should say that both language courses and content courses, so all of your courses will be, there will be a small group of students, which means that you can ask questions and you can have close conversations with your tutors. When we have larger cohorts, so the maximum, we have a cap usually at 15 students, but for language courses, groups are smaller. They might be between 10 and 15. And when we have larger cohorts of students, for lectures, for example, so we lecture, I don't know, 30, 60 students, then we also ensure that we have smaller groups of, smaller seminar groups where students work in small numbers and are, and are closely followed. The year abroad, which is very important, very interesting, and yes, very important part of our degrees. You spend your third year abroad. If you are a single honor, you spend the whole year in the whole third year in the country where the language that you're studying is spoken. If you study a joint honors or BA language, I'm sorry, single honors and BA language and culture, you go to one country. For joint honors, you go to 2 countries. So you spend half of the year in one country and half of the year in the other country, again, corresponding to the languages that you're studying. And of course, if you study language with another discipline, you go to one country only. And what do you do while you are abroad? You can study at a university of that country. You can work there, which means that you practice the language by, being immersed in a workforce. You'll be part of a workforce, or you can also teach English with the British Council. And we have different destinations in Europe, in Latin America, and so ask us again if you have questions about the year abroad. This is an experience that students love very much, because as you can imagine, I mean, it can be challenging, but it's also very rewarding. It's very interesting. I would say, well, certainly I'm often amazed by, the language skills that students acquire while being abroad. So we leave students at the end of the second year where they can speak, but certainly you can say that they are foreign students, and then when they come back, they are fully fluent. If you use your year abroad wisely, it's like becoming almost bilingual, I would say. It's really amazing to see how students have improved through the year abroad. But also I would say, it's a life experience. You grow as a person, not just as a speaker of a foreign language. Funding of the year abroad is something you will perhaps have questions about. So let me say that until this year, the UK were in this Erasmus program, which is a EU program that allows exchanges between universities, exchanges of professors and of students. And so we were part of that, and it was it was easier, basically. Now we still have the exchanges with universities that that we were partners of, but the funding comes from the UK only, not from the European Union, and it's called Turing funding. It works a bit differently, so ask questions if you have them. The interesting thing about Turing funding is that while Erasmus funding covered only exchanges with European universities, Turing funding covers, helps you go to destinations in Europe, but also outside Europe. Well, I think you, since you're interested in studying foreign languages, you already have an idea of why it is important. I mean, beyond, you know, your personal growth and the skills that you might acquire through languages, it is something that is required in the job market very much in the UK today. So it's something that, you know, will help you find a job when you leave UCL, because language skills are a plus in your CV. So I will not read through these, but it's taken from a government website, and I encourage you to check this relationship between languages and employment. What I can say is that we often check, you know, about languages that are required in the job market in the UK, and there's this website uk.indeed.com where you can, you know, search for jobs throughout the UK. You can focus on those offered in London or elsewhere. And I did this search on the 4th of March this year, only focusing on jobs offered in London. So this gives you an idea of, you know, how much foreign languages are required and could help you in finding a job. And here you find all kinds of jobs. So I encourage you to check this website. Now, I said I would say something about more widely spoken languages and less spoken languages. Do not assume that, you know, Norwegian, Danish, Portuguese are less helpful than German, French, and Spanish. Why am I saying so? Because it's true, German, French, and Spanish are more widely spoken, but this means that there are more people competing with you in the job market. And I'm not just saying the native speakers, but people who graduate like you from UK universities. Because of course, there are a larger number of students with BA in French, in Spanish, whereas our graduates in, say, Norwegian, Swedish, Portuguese are much less. And not just ours. I mean, throughout the UK, you have less people speaking Swedish, speaking Dutch, speaking Norwegian, which means that when you go on the job market with these skills, you have more opportunities because there are less people who have those language skills. So consider, because this is an opportunity for you. You know, you have this time to spend at university, and it's an opportunity for you to learn a language that usually people don't learn or not that that often. So perhaps combining this with a more widely spoken language, I don't know. I mean, but have a thought about it. Do not assume that, you know, Danish is not useful. It is. It is. Yeah, I mean, you have an eye to what follows, what comes next, what will come after after UCL, after you graduate, perhaps not now, but I mean, you will at some point. But we also have an eye to it, because we care, and we want you to find a job when you leave UCL. So throughout your time here at UCL, you will be receiving a lot of emails, I would say once a week, or I mean periodically, but quite often, emails from UCL Careers. And UCL Careers send emails with a job list and vacancies of jobs that you can already take as students, and that are sought. Let me give you some examples. These are taken from some of the emails that I received lately. So, I mean, the areas are very wide. So media, charities, government, human resources, arts and heritage, etc. And these are the kinds of jobs that that are required. So you will start, receiving guidance and suggestions already through UCL Careers. Also, UCL Careers organizes events with people from different areas. For example, in this case, it was a museum curator. So they call these people and they have events with students where these people explain what their job involves and how to, have what you should do if you're interested in that type of career. So, I mean, this is very useful. And if you have a specific idea in mind, you will find an opportunity to explore this. If you haven't specific ideas in mind, you will have many opportunities to start thinking about it and develop many thoughts. So what makes us special? Well, as I said, you learn in a very friendly environment where small groups of students and a lot of guidance. You learn not just the language, but also the culture. And this is, I think, an important distinction. So it's not, it's not just learning Italian to go to Italy and learn and knowing how to order a pizza, but it's about understanding cultural differences and applying these skills of understanding differences and how a problem can be approached anywhere in your, certainly career, but I would say life. As I said, what makes us special is this idea of being multidisciplinary and intercultural, which means that we always explore through our courses and through the languages that we teach the idea of being connected, of being different, but also of being alike. And so diversity and boundaries and breaking those boundaries, cultural boundaries, any kind of boundaries. You get, I mean, the language study is really deep. So you get language proficiency, and I explained the fantastic things of the year abroad. And you also have academic and personal support throughout your 4 years with UCL. The people who teach you are are very international. So not only the students are very international, but also the professors. And they are, top quality researchers. And what is interesting is that the research that your tutors do is that somehow informed their teaching. So in a sense, you learn from the experts and from experts who are recognized around the world and who produce top quality research. which I would say translates into top quality teaching. And the students, I mean, this is a very diverse body of students at UCL that makes cultural conversations very interesting, because you always meet different people and hear different perspectives, not just in our courses, but also you know, on the campus, just by chatting with students. And this is London, which means that for everything that we do and we explore and we teach in the classes, there will be plenty of opportunities to hear it again in the city, and going beyond through the language institutes, Goethe Institute for German, French Institute, Italian Institute, Instituto Cervantes, but also British Library, British Film Archive. I mean, you name it, basically London has it. So it's certainly a great place to be, to learn anything and to be exposed to diversity and cultural diversity. The next steps are, well, to ask questions now, definitely, if you have them, or to ask questions later by writing us using the email address that you see on the screen. So SELCS-CMII inquiries at UCL AC UK. I think, yes, this is my last slide. And so we're now very happy to answer your questions. I can't see the chat, but let me, but I will let someone else read questions in the chat if there are.
Yeah, we can. If anyone wants to type questions into the chat, or if you want to take off your audio or video and say it out loud, then that's fine as well. But yeah, do fire away with any questions you might have.
Don't be shy, really, because we're here to answer any kind of questions. Yeah, I mean, if you want to, yeah, no.
Oh, here we go. Sorry.
Good.
I'll read some out, Beatrice. Okay. So how much flexibility is there when choosing cultural modules?
I would say it depends on the degree that you're taking. But you have a fixed number of hours for the language courses, and then there are some cultural options that you must take if you want to, you know, have a BA in that language and culture. And then there's a number of courses where you're free to choose. Both, and these can be cultural options in that language or ELCS courses. I cannot give you a number because it depends on the kind of degree that you pursue. And as I said, you have slightly more freedom, for example, with BA language and culture. If you have, I would say, if you know already the combination or the single honors, if it's a single honors that you're interested in, send us an email and we'll be able to answer this question, you know, in a more tailored way, because there isn't one size fits all. It depends on the program. But I wouldn't be worried, because I mean, the cultural options are interesting, and you have the, you know, the possibility of also choosing between a pool of courses that are also interesting. So don't, I mean, I would say, yeah, come to UCL and be open to these cultural options, because, as I said, I would say it's difficult to be bored, because being multicultural and interdisciplinary, even in a cultural options that is in one language, you will be able to explore things that in a very open way. So I wouldn't but yes, if you have a specific question, I mean, if you know exactly the languages that you're going to take, we can answer these questions in a more detailed way. Thank you.
Got lots more questions coming in now. So next one is it possible to read music with French as a joint degree? And if so, what would the ratio be for each subject? Unfortunately, music's not taught at UCL, so it's not possible to do that, I'm afraid. But it would be lovely. That sounds like quite a nice combination. Okay, then we've got a couple of questions, Beatrice, for you about how much of the teaching is in the language and what is the balance of teaching language between being taught in English versus being taught in the target language.
Well, for courses where you can start ab initio, so from scratch, certainly we don't start speaking, I mean, teaching in that language. So saying, for example, in Italian, where you can start ab initio, we have, we teach the cultural options. I mean, in the language courses, we try to speak as much as possible the language and make you speak the language gradually, of course. But I mean, the point is to speak the language in language courses. When you say cultural options, we are very aware in the first and in the first year especially that you can't speak that language if you started ab initio. So the materials will be in English, we speak in English, but we also try to start looking at the materials in Italian. And so we start, making some observations and reflecting also about the language that we encounter in our readings. This becomes more the case in the second year, and we always try to offer readings. For example, if we read a novel, we always make sure that there is an English translation that is provided. And as I said, when students come back from the year abroad, they're usually very fluent. And sometimes in the fourth year, when they come back, I ask the class, would you like me to speak in English or in Italian? And sometimes I have the entire class answering in Italian because they really want and enjoy being taught in the language, because at that point they can understand pretty well and also speak. So don't worry, because we know that learning a language is difficult, and I mean, a university course. So all the essays are written in English, and again, we speak English in the class, but we try to also incorporate as much as we can the language through readings or different kinds of materials.
I think possibly for French and Spanish, when you need to have A-level as an entry requirement, there might be more in the language in first and second year than there would be for an ab initio, starting a language ab initio. But I think it would still be a conversation with the tutor, with the class at the start, just to kind of gauge levels and things like that, so nobody's kind of left out or left behind.
Yeah, but I suppose that in that case, you need to be able to read a text, for example, and perhaps not always the English translation is provided, but there are opportunities to ask in class, if anything is unclear, or nobody's left behind, really. That's a principle, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so next question. What sort of language societies are there to get involved in? I can start with that one. So there is a SELCS society. So, and then I'm not sure of all the different societies, because the societies aren't run by UCL themselves. They're run by the Student Union, which is a separate entity to UCL. But basically, on societies in general, there's pretty much a society for everything. And if you can't find the society that you want, then it's quite easy to start one yourself. So there will definitely be like societies for all the different languages that we teach, I would have thought, but also loads of other things as well. And so the society kind of community is very vibrant, and there's all sorts of different of societies that are available. Right, next one. Could you summarize the amount of contact time we could expect in terms of lectures, seminars, one-to-one, as well as number of students in lectures and seminars?
I think I said something about the number of students. So in language courses, groups are small, no more than 10, sometimes 12 students. And the same is true for content options. And as I said, when we have, sometimes there are courses where we offer lectures to a larger cohort of students, we always ensure that we then have seminar groups capped at 15. So you always have the opportunity to be in small groups and being taught, and have close conversations with the other students and with the tutors. And in terms of contact time, I think, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, but language teaching is about 3 or 4 hours maybe per week. And then you know more maybe
yeah,
about
no, sorry, I was leaving you to do some. Yeah, so I think probably what we say on average is like 10 to 12 hours a week. And so yeah, like Beatrice said, like language is probably 4 to 5 hours, depending on the language that you're learning. And then for your optional modules, it's usually 2 hours per week per module, as a general rule of thumb. For language as well, there's also a language lab that has that your tutors will kind of organize sessions in. Those aren't compulsory, I don't think, but they would be recommended to attend. And so what we ask is so you do language over the whole year, and then your content modules tend to run only in one term or the other term. We only teach in terms 1 and term 2 in UCL. The third term is examinations. And so we try and encourage students to choose their content modules so that they have a balance between term 1 and term 2, so that they not have a really heavy term versus a really light term, which it makes it very difficult with things like assessment. And so therefore, yeah, you could say on average you'd have, say, like about 12 hours per week of contact time, but then obviously an expectation to do a lot more reading and self-study outside of those hours.
The next question is, how much of the submitted work is in the target language, example, or essays, literature essays, the target language or English? Essays are always in English. Language exams, of course, you use the target language, but essays are in English, exams are in English. So yeah. For example, in essays, we encourage students to quote in the target language, because, if you know it, why not? I mean, you're studying it, so it's a way to using it. But essays are written in English. Can you choose the partner university you'd like to study at, or are you assigned one based on your performance or other criteria? Well, first of all, we have partnerships not with every university in France or in Spain, but amongst those we have partnerships with. Laura, you know more about this again.
I think basically when the time comes for you to apply for your year abroad, you can list your preferences in order of preference, and we will try and take into account your preferences as best we can. If there is high demand for a particular university, and there is a limited number of places, then a level of selection will have to take place with regards to who goes. And then I think exam performance in your first and second year does go into that decision making. But it depends. I mean, I think it depends obviously on the language that you're studying, or languages that you're studying as well. It will depend on the level of demand for particular universities.
I think the next one is also for you, Laura. What is the success rate of receiving the Turing funding?
I think so far it's been okay. It's very early days, so it's difficult for us to predict how it's going to go in future. But so far, I think we have received the funding that we have bid for, and we're hopeful that that will continue. But it's done on a year-by-year basis with Turing, whereas Erasmus was done on kind of blocks of years. I think maybe 7-year blocks.
Yeah, cycles of 7
cycles
years.
of 7 years. So you had a lot more certainty for a period of time, whereas Turing is done on a year-by-year basis, and so it is difficult for us to say anything with any degree of certainty. But so far, it has that we have been successful with our applications for funding.
Yeah, and I mean, when we have the funding, I think the question might be from the perspective of students. Are there students left without funding? No, if you have the funding, I think each student receives at least a part of the funding, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's what I understand as. Yeah. For languages that you aren't studying from a base level, how different are the levels of fluency across the students?
Well,
Italian would be a good example with that one.
Yeah, the idea, because for example, in Italian, where you can start ab initio or post A level, you're placed in 2 different groups. But the idea, and so you advance in different paths. But the idea is that when you come back from the year abroad, you are very fluent, even if you started from scratch. And so in the 4th year, all students are part of the same cohort. There are no more different sort of groups.
And the groups would only be for the language teaching. You'd be all together for the content courses. Yeah.
How often are the examinations that count towards degree? Does every piece of work hold a weighting in degree grade for that year? I mean, again, in terms of how often, it depends on the module, because there are some modules for which you won't have exams, but you will write essays. And there are modules for which you write 1 essay that counts 100%, and modules for which you write 2 essays that are weighted, say, 40 and 60%, or 35 and 65, or you have an essay that counts, I don't know, 40, and then an exam that counts for 60% of the final mark. So it depends, but the examinations are in the 3rd term. So now it's, for example, the time for examinations. And does every piece of work hold a weighting in degree grade for that year? So there are, so you need to take, to submit the work, but there's only a certain percentage of the work you submit each year counts towards your grade for that year. And this percentage is lower in the 1st year than in the 4th year, because we know, that you need to adjust to university study and exams and essays. So I'm not sure about the exact weighting, but there is a part. So say if you do very well in most of your courses in the 1st year, but perform very badly in 1 or 2, I think you can exclude that portion, and your degree for that year is calculated on your best performance. And that's a principle that is built in, and it's for all the years. But in the 4th year, of course, you have more courses counting, and you can't exclude as much as you can exclude in the 1st year.
Regarding the 12 hours of contact time, is that per language or in total for 2 languages? That would be in total for whatever degree you're doing with us in SELCS, basically. So each degree has a total number of credits that you have to take each year. So if you were doing so regardless of what degree subject you're doing, you've got a total number of credits that you need to take. So for example, if you were studying French single honours, you would, the amount of French language you did every week would be the same amount of French language that somebody doing French and Spanish would do every week, but you'd just be doing more content courses with the rest of your credits. Whereas if you're doing French and Spanish, you do French language, Spanish language, and then fewer content modules for each discipline, basically. So yeah, it's 12 hours, approximately 12 hours, whatever degree combination you're doing with us. And another question to clarify, is the maximum number of languages 2? Yes. Would there be any way to pick up Arabic even for a short period of time if I'm studying French and Spanish as main languages? Not as part of your degree, but in one of Beatrice's slides, she mentioned the Centre for Languages and International Education, which is a sort of department within UCL, which also teaches language. And there they offer all sorts of languages in a kind of evening classy type format, open to all UCL staff and students at discounted rates. So you would be able to pick up Arabic there for sure, but it would be extracurricular from your actual degree. However, there were also, like, talking about societies, there's almost certainly an Arabic society. There are, like, the university is very, very diverse, and there would definitely be chances to practice a third language with other students within UCL, if you'd be able to search them out and be able to do that. But it's not possible to do 3 languages as part of your degree, unfortunately.
Any other questions?
I'm going to pop a couple of links in the chat just so you have them. The first one is just the UCL web. You've probably seen it before, but it's the UCL webpage of prospective students, and it gives you just kind of an overview of everything that we've said so far, but from a sort of institutional perspective rather than just the departmental perspective. So it covers all the programs, study abroad, if you're an international student, what you need to do to come here, visas, etc. Open days that you might want to sign up for, like in-person open days that you might want to sign up for, and things like accommodation, what it's like living in London, things like that. So that's kind of a helpful one. And then also our departmental website, which has got more stuff about us specifically. So yeah, but and likewise, the email address that Beatrice, hey, can you put that up again? Sorry.
Yes, let's try.
Some of those ones I always get the hyphen in the wrong place if I write it in.
Here. Let's see.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically this email address will come directly to me, Audrey, and our team, who will be able to answer any kind of specific questions you might have about any of our degrees, or anything that you might want to go into with any more detail with us after attending this talk. So do make use of that and contact us if you do have any questions.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, that's the address. I wanted to paste it in the chat, but
that's just going to defeat us. That's going to defeat us this evening. Oh yeah, oh no, Audrey. Oh, thank you. Okay. So yeah, that's in there as well. So yeah, do you'll find it on our website as well. So yeah, do make use of that and contact us if you have any questions.
Yeah, by all means. I mean, we're here to answer your questions, and yeah. So if there are no more questions, and again, I can't see the chat, but if there are no more questions, I think we can stop here. Thank you very much again for attending this virtual open day. We hope it was useful, and use the links that Laura provided in the chat and write us if you have further questions. Thank you very much again to everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Laura, I will